Welcome students to Unit 14. This will be our last unit of coursework other than the final exam. In this unit, we're going to cover Chapter 8, Section 5. So you're required to read that in Layman's book, Chapter 8, Section 5. And this section is about the Reductio ad absurdum. So not only do we have our 8 implication rules, our 10 equivalency rules, and our conditional proof, we can also use the Reductio ad absurdum, which we can reduce to RAA, or the Reductio, to show that an argument is valid. And there will be no quiz in this unit as well, so just focus on doing your homework and mastering the content. So these types of proofs of Reductio, they're done in the same way as conditional proofs by using assumptions and bracketing or indenting to show the assumption being used. And Layman's explanation is very good. Reductios are very helpful in assuming and simplifying proofs and showing validity. We will focus on their use in showing validity. So CP and Reductios, they're closely related from a theoretical standpoint, and we can always use CP when we can use Reductio. Reductio proofs will typically be shorter except when the conclusion of the argument is a conditional. You can use Reductio on any argument, even those that have a conditional or a compound statement as a conclusion. So a couple of tips. When we're trying to prove a negation, which is what Reductio does, we take the conclusion and the assumption we make is a negation of that conclusion. So we show what we try to develop is a contradiction from that assumption. So by showing if we negate and if the conclusion is false, you end up with a contradiction given the premises. Then we show that the argument is valid, that conclusion given those premises must all be true to lead to a true conclusion. So when we're trying to prove a negation, we obtain our assumption line simply by dropping the tilde. So if our conclusion to the argument is actually a negative, then we just drop the tilde and put the bare statement there. When we're trying to prove a statement that is not a negation, we obtain our assumption line by adding the tilde, by adding the negation to that conclusion. And Reductio will always work, but it may unnecessarily complicate a proof at times. And when a proof seems difficult or impossible and the conclusion of the argument is not a conditional, you may want to try a Reductio. So with the Reductio ad absurdum, like I said, what you want to do is you take the conclusion and you negate it. If it already is a negation, you drop the negation and move it down. And the goal is to take that negation, or that assumption, and develop a contradiction. And once you've developed a contradiction, you write RAA, and you've proven the Reductio. And you've used that to show that the argument is valid.